So another thing that you were talking about in your presentation is the importance of saying no. How important that is, and how that isn't happening in some cases where it should.
Yeah. This is, again, about the suppression of the masculine instinct. And again, this has nothing to do with, let me just clear up before we go further, this has nothing to do with being male or female. These are qualities that exist within all individuals regardless of gender. It's not about gender. Okay?
So, for example, when people are talking about the rise of the sacred feminine,
yes,
this isn't about just simply rise of women.
No.
It's that energy that's even within us
Correct.
as men.
Correct.
It's that balance being restored.
Yes.
Okay.
See, so you can look at the sacred feminine as the non-aggression principles. Do not initiate harm to others. Okay, do not take what isn't yours. Okay, do not coerce or compel someone else against their free will. Okay, this is the sacred feminine component of consciousness. It's the dynamic of true care, respecting other people's natural law rights. The dynamic of the sacred masculine is, if someone is suppressing your natural inherent rights, if they are attempting to usurp your rights or commit violence against you, you maintain at all times and places the natural law right to defend your body, yourself, your life, your possessions, your property, your rights with force if you are being accosted with violence and coercion. Okay? Because that's always a wrongdoing. People don't have a right to do that. So, that's what we're talking about here. These dynamics of consciousness exist within all individuals. We all need to have both of these dynamics present if we're going to create real change in our world and bring things back to true balance. It has nothing to do with gender. Men and women alike have both the masculine aspect of consciousness and the feminine aspect of consciousness within them both. So let's give some examples of how this right to say no is not being exercised and is being suppressed. You have people that think that they could come in and shut down someone's right to assemble and speak freely. So an example took place right here in Pennsylvania a couple of years ago at the G20 gathering in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Sound cannons.
Yeah, the city of Pittsburgh actually took it upon themselves to say that they were suspending the First Amendment. They didn't say it like that, but essentially that's what they were saying. They said there's no lawful gatherings permitted during the duration of this conference, the G20 summit. The nerve telling you know, for this time period, you no longer have the right to assemble and speak freely. That they said people have to be off the streets, and they took out sound cannons, LRAD cannons, that destroy human hearing, and also had loaded weapons, violently threatening people if they did not leave certain areas. I mean, the nerve, the unmitigated gall of the people who followed these orders. They're trash. They're scum. They're Nazis. I mean, that's all I can say about it. It's like the contempt that I have for order followers like that, I can't even express. But, in a lot of ways, people still allow them to do this. We didn't say, you do not have the right to do this. You're not taking our right to assemble and speak. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think protesting does that much. I'm not really for getting together and protesting and begging so-called leaders to change their behavior. I think you ignore them, and then they'll eventually go away. And make people understand you got to stop following their orders. Most of all, these idiots who keep following their orders are the people who are really keeping their sick psychopathic dynamics in place in our world. But I'm not a big fan of the protesting dynamic. I am a very big supporter of people's right to do that. Okay, because they're not causing harm to other people. If you're going to peacefully protest and say, here's what I want to say, I want to get this message out, I want to make myself seen and heard, you have that right. And that right should always be defended with teeth if necessary. It should be defended with teeth if that's what's required to defend it. Once we let our natural law right of assembly and speech be taken away, we're really done at that point. So I'm all for, I would have been for saying none of these people who are trying to put down this protest have the right to do this. And force would have been appropriate to be used in that instance. And any instance when free speech is being suppressed, I would then say that's the line in the sand. If there's a line in the sand, that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the line that needs to be drawn. Once somebody else is telling you you can't assemble and speak, then different measures need to be taken other than just simply peaceful protest and allowing people's heads to be kicked in and watching it happen. I would say then the sacred masculine principle needs to go into effect. And we need to understand why that needs to take place. If these people won't back down when they're told, no, you're not going to take these rights, you have no right to do this. You're the one who's initiating the violence. You're the one who is wrong. You have no right to do this. You know, and if they won't back down when no is said, then I'm all for the defensive use of force to maintain a right that isn't someone else's to take away.
Well said. And the other thing that you bring up a lot on your podcast is this need for us to stop supporting dominators.
Right.
And in so many different ways in society, in relationships, in our relationship with our employers, for a lot of people, there is this master-slave relationship that people somehow participate in, either by allowing it to happen to themselves or allowing it to happen to others, or imposing that master-slave relationship philosophy on others.
Right.
So it seems like, you know, in order to escape this matrix, we have to go to the deepest root of where these problems are coming from,
Sure.
and it seems to be one of them.
And to speak to that, the deepest root of that is the belief in authority itself. This is the masculine left unchecked, and it's combined with the dynamic of the feminine left unchecked. So let me explain what that means. For someone to believe that they're a master, that results from chronic left brain hemispherical imbalance in the brain. And when that happens, the emotions get suppressed within the personality, within the individual's consciousness. And then they go into basically fight or flight mode all the time, and wanting to control things all the time. Okay? Because when you're in that mode of, you know, self-preservation only, survival only, instinct only, you become like an animal. And the reptilian brain takes over, and you want to control everything. This is the masculine aspect of the personality, completely out of control. Okay, not being held in check and used for the right purposes, which is the defense purpose when you are under attack, your rights are under attack. Okay, now you combine that dynamic of master think, of someone who says, I'm the authority, okay, and I have rights that other people do not have, and I'm going to use violence, not force, but violence against people to make their will conform to my will, to conform to what I want. Okay, that's the masculine dynamic, completely out of control. That's left brain hemispherical imbalance, and it is what I simply call master think. Okay, now you combine that dynamic with what I call slave think. This is the right brain hemisphere, completely out of control, chronically imbalanced toward the right brain hemisphere. Now the feminine aspect of the personality is out of control. And now this person will not stand up for themselves. They accept the claim, the erroneous claim of authority. They believe in the claim of authority. Authority is an illusion. No one is an authority over anybody else. You know, whether anybody accepts that or not, that's the truth of the world. That is the truth in nature, that there is no group, there is no person who is in control and in charge of someone else. We are all sovereign beings. This is another thing that has to be understood. The word sovereign comes from Latin. The adverb super in Latin means above or beyond, and the noun regnum, reign, where sovereign comes from. Regnum in Latin means to rulership or control. Rulership or control, as in external rulership over another, as in someone claiming to be an authority or a ruler of someone else. Well, you put them together. Super regnum, sovereign, above external rulership or control, not a subject. to a master, not a slave. All sovereign means is not a slave. You know, you hear people putting down the sovereign movement. Oh, the sovereign citizen.
Right.
This person's claiming to be sovereign. They're claiming to be a sovereign citizen. Well, all anyone is claiming when they say that they're sovereign is that they are not someone else's slave. And you ask somebody, are you a slave? Are you someone's slave? Do you have a master? You know, is this person master over you and you're their slave? No one will say that they're a slave. No one will admit, yes, I'm a slave, I have a master. So what they're saying is, I'm sovereign. I'm not a slave. That's all the word means. Anybody who's trying to make the definition of sovereign into something other than that doesn't know what the word means. The word sovereign means not a slave. So going back to these dynamics that keep authority in place and keep violence and slavery in place in our world, you know, you have that left brain out of control dynamic that leads to masterthink. The right brain aspect is not standing up for yourself, not developing self-respect so that you know that you're sovereign and that you know what your rights are. And you're not going to allow them to be usurped and taken, you know, either all at one time or even slowly in increments. And you're going to stand up for your natural rights. And you're going to say no. The word no. Fall in love with it. Understand that that's the word of all power. That is the word where we reclaim all of our power. When somebody is trying to take our rights and we say no, all power comes on our side. And we need to not just say no, we need to be able to back the no. The no has to be backed with the ability to use physical force if necessary. This is why I'm such a huge supporter of gun rights, of inherent rights to use guns in a defensive capacity, and will always maintain an interest in preserving those rights. And this is what people who are too far in the right brain form of imbalance don't understand. You know, anybody who is for gun control and wanting to take the ability to use defensive force away from someone, or even to make it harder to obtain the ability to use defensive force. You know, owning a firearm, it's a piece of property. You have the right to do that to maintain the ability to use defensive force if someone accosts you with violence or tries to take your rights that they have no right to take. That's what the ownership of guns is for. Now, if you start to abuse that right and start doing actions with that property that you have no right to take, that's violence. And I'm all for going after criminals who use guns to take violent action against other people that they have no right to take. But as far as gun control goes, people really have to understand that's a violation of our inherent right to maintain the ability to defend ourselves with force if necessary. So, you know, those two dynamics, the left brain imbalance and the right brain imbalance playing off against each other, is exactly where the controllers of this world want to keep the consciousness of the people of this planet.
Well, that's a very good point, that there are some people that fear reality without authorities or rulers, or some could even call them archons, which equates to rulers.
Yes.
And the reason is the way the media has portrayed that reality, anarchy as chaos, but it's also how some that call themselves anarchists have behaved at some protests that some of us have seen firsthand.
Yes.
The ones that call for property destruction. But you have your own understanding of what those individuals actually represent, which is a little bit different than anarchy, because to throw in, I'm also hearing them push socialism in some cases.
Of course. So many quote-unquote anarchists are cultural Marxists. And, you know, that'll upset a lot of people, but what they're really shooting for is Marxism, you know, and then eventually a socialist society, and which leads to a communist society. And what these people don't understand is that the super capitalists want Marxism, they want socialism, they want cultural socialism. These are the people who invented this ideology and put it out there for people to convince people that we could have a workers' paradise, you know, controlled by the state at first, and then eventually the all-powerful state would give up its authority and relinquish control to the people, suddenly, magically, somehow. You know, communism is the New World Order, ladies and gentlemen. By any other name you want to call it, it's a communist government. It's a worldwide communist government. Communism is international socialism. Okay? If you really look at, you know, politically what communism is about, it's about taking socialism worldwide, making a globalist socialist society, and that's what communism is. So, you know, you have these two brands of socialism, these two pillars of socialism, that one comes in from the right, one comes in from the left. You have National Socialism